You are nothing but a mistake, Mama Ngozi said, her voice sharp enough to cut through bone. If I could turn back time, I would never have carried you in my womb. Those words did not shock Amaka anymore. They had become the rhythm of her life. At 24, Amaka was the second daughter in a family that treated her existence like a burden that refused to disappear. In the crowded compound in Ibadan where they lived, every corner carried noise, movement, and judgment. But for Amaka, the loudest thing was always silence. The kind that followed whenever her name was mentioned. Her elder sister, Ifunanya, was married to a wealthy businessman in Lagos. Her younger brother, Chibuzo, was the pride of the family, working in a bank and sending money home every month. Even her younger sister, Adaiza, had recently started a tailoring business that was already bringing in customers. Amaka was the only one who seemed to be going nowhere. She had a degree in business administration, but it sat useless in a worn-out folder under her mattress. Job applications had turned into rejection emails, then into silence, and eventually into nothing at all. To her family, that meant only one thing: failure. Every morning, before the sun rose fully over the rusted rooftops of the compound, Amaka was already awake. She swept the yard, fetched water, washed clothes, and prepared breakfast. Not because anyone asked her politely, but because no one else would do it, and because if she didn't, there would be consequences. Lazy girl, Mama Ngozi would say if she found a single plate unwashed. Useless. Adaizi would add, not even looking up from her phone. Even Chibuzo, who rarely spoke, had once told her, "You're too comfortable being nothing." Amaka had stopped defending herself long ago, because in that house, explanations were treated like insults. One afternoon, after yet another failed job interview, Amaka returned home exhausted. Her shoes were dusty, her blouse clung to her skin, and her hope, whatever was left of it, felt heavier than her body. As she stepped into the compound, laughter filled the air. Her family was gathered outside. Ifunanya was visiting, the same sister who never came without bringing expensive gifts and stories of her luxurious life in Lagos. Amaka slowed down. No one noticed. She stood there for a moment, watching them, watching how her mother smiled, wide and proud, watching how Ades laughed without restraint, watching how Chibuzo leaned forward, fully engaged. That version of the family did not exist for her. Quietly, she turned and walked past them. No greeting, no welcome, no acknowledgement. Inside the small room she shared with Ades, Amaka sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. "What am I doing wrong?" she whispered to herself. But there was no answer. That night, while the family ate together outside, Amaka ate alone in the kitchen. Cold food. No conversation, just the sound of her own thoughts. It was there, in that quiet corner, that something inside her began to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Amaka did not wake up early. For the first time in years, she stayed in bed. And when Mama Ngozi stormed into the room shouting, Amaka did not jump up in panic. She sat up slowly, calmly. "I will not do it today," she said. The room went silent. "What did you say?" her mother asked, disbelief dripping from every word. "I said I will not do it today." The air changed instantly. Mama Ngozi's face hardened. "You have finally lost your mind." Amaka held her gaze. "No," she said quietly. "I have finally found it." That day, Amaka left the house with no destination, But this time, she was not running from shame. She was searching for something else. Anything else. Hours later, she found herself sitting in a small roadside cafe, using their free Wi-Fi to scroll through opportunities she had once ignored. That was when she saw it. A business grant program. For young Nigerians. Her heart skipped. She clicked. She read every word. Then she sat back, staring at the screen. "This is not for people like me," she whispered. But something inside her refused to agree. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to imagine. She had always known how to cook. Not just ordinary meals, but snacks. People loved. Chin chin, puff puff, small chops. She had sold them occasionally in the past, just to survive. What if? No. She shook her head. Her mind had been trained to reject hope before it could grow. But that voice, the new one, pushed back. What if you try? The deadline was in 3 days. Amaka spent the next hours writing. Carefully, slowly, like someone building a future out of broken pieces. She described a small food business, affordable, accessible, built for busy families and office workers. She wrote until her eyes burned, until her fingers ached, and when she was done, she hesitated. Then she submitted it. And just like that, the waiting began. She told no one, because hope in that house was dangerous. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Nothing came, and life returned to its usual rhythm. Insults, silence, survival, until one afternoon. An email arrived. Amaka stared at the screen. Her hands trembled. She opened it, and everything changed. Amaka's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. For a moment, she could not breathe. The words on the screen blurred, then sharpened again. "Congratulations, you have been selected." She stopped reading, not because she didn't want to, but because she needed to be sure this was real. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled down slowly, reading every line like it might disappear if she rushed. She had been selected for the grant. Everything she had once believed was not meant for her. Tears filled her eyes. Not loud tears. Not the kind that demanded attention, but the quiet kind that carried years of pain, rejection, and silence. For the first time in her life, something had chosen her. Amaka closed the laptop and sat still. Then she whispered, almost afraid of her own voice, "This is my way out." But she did not run home with the news. She did not tell her family, because deep down, she already knew. They would not celebrate her. They would question her, doubt her, maybe even destroy it before it could grow. So she kept quiet, and she started building. The training began the following week. Every morning, Amaka left the house early, pretending she had found small cleaning jobs around the neighborhood. Mama Ngozi did not question it. In fact, she seemed pleased. "At least you are finally useful," she said. Amaka only nodded. If only she knew. The training was intense. Business planning, marketing, customer psychology, money management. Everything Amaka had once studied in school now came alive in real, practical ways, and for the first time, she understood, not just the theory, but the power. She worked harder than anyone else, stayed longer, asked more questions, took notes like her life depended on it. Because this time, it did. At the end of the program, each participant was required to present their business idea. When it was Amaka's turn, her hands shook slightly as she stood, but her voice did not. "My name is Amaka Okoye," she began, "and I am building a food business for people who cannot afford to waste time, but still deserve quality. She spoke with clarity, with precision, with something new, confidence. When she finished, the room was silent. Then came the applause. Not polite, not forced, but real. And in that moment, Amaka realized something powerful. She had never been the problem. She had simply been surrounded by people who refused to see her value. 2 weeks later, the funds were released. Amaka held the confirmation message on her phone like it was a key to a new life. Because it was. She did not go home immediately. Instead, she went straight to the market, bought ingredients, basic equipment, everything she needed to start small. Very small. That night, while her family slept, Amaka began. She fried puff puff in silence, prepared chin-chin, packaged everything neatly, labeled them carefully. It was not perfect, but it was hers. The next morning, she took her products to a nearby bus stop. Her heart raced as she approached the first customer. "Good morning," she said softly. "Would you like to try fresh snacks?" The woman looked at her, hesitated, then nodded. That one sale changed everything, because it proved something. This could work. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, it did. Customers returned. Word spread. Her snacks became known, not because she shouted the loudest, but because she delivered the best, and for the first time in her life, money began to flow, not from begging, not from surviving, but from creating. At home, the change did not go unnoticed. "Where are you getting this money?" Adaizi asked one evening, suspicion clear in her voice. "From work," Amaka replied simply. Mama Ngozi narrowed her eyes. "What kind of work?" Amaka looked at her. Calm, steady, the kind you never believed I could do. Silence. But this time, it was different. It was not filled with judgment. It was filled with uncertainty. Months passed. Amaka expanded from a tray at a bus stop to supplying small offices, then events, then a tiny shop. The same girl they had called useless was now building something real. One afternoon, Efunanya visited again. But this time, she did not ignore Amaka. She walked straight to her. "I heard about your business," she said. Her tone was different. Careful, measured. "I can connect you with some people in Lagos. Bigger opportunities." Amaka looked at her sister, and, for a moment, she saw the shift. Respect, not love, but something close enough. "Thank you," Amaka said, "but I will grow it my way." Ifunanya nodded slowly, because for the first time, she understood. Amaka no longer needed saving. Later that evening, Mama Ngozi called her. Her voice was softer than usual. "I may have been hard on you," she said. Amaka listened, but she did not respond immediately, because some words take time to process. Finally, she spoke. "You were not hard on me," Amaka said calmly. "You broke me." The truth hung in the air, uncomfortable, heavy, but I rebuilt myself, she continued, and this time, I will not break again. Mama Ngozi said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. Months later, Amaka stood in front of her own shop, a real one, with a sign, with customers, with life. She watched as people walked in, smiling, greeting her, trusting her, and in that moment, she understood something deeper than success. Rejection had not been the end of her story. It had been the beginning. Because sometimes, the people who see you as nothing are the same ones who force you to discover everything you truly are. And as the sun set over Ibadan, casting golden light over her shop, Amaka smiled. Not because her life had become perfect, but because it had finally become hers. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting and exciting tales.